This is the Bizgnus podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
For 4 decades, Elisha Shapiro has been part of the artistic scene in Los Angeles, creating what he calls conceptual art that explores modern mass media, beliefs, and the very nature of art. And for the past 20 years, he's spearheaded the annual Nihilist Film Festival. Mr. Shapiro joins us on this Bizgnus podcast to talk about the entertainment business from a decidedly different perspective. Well, let's kind of set the table for our listeners and our viewers by having you give them kind of the elevator pitch of who you are and how you got here.
Okay, I am a weird conceptual artist, and I know that's an odd kind of artist to call yourself, but yes, over the last 40 years or so, I've been kind of staging these public events just so I can kind of like get my worldview, artistic ideas out there. So
now you are the author of a new book called L.A. Freak, F-R-E-A-K, correct?
Correct, yeah.
And I was looking up, how many books do you suppose have been written about Hollywood? Amazon itself lists more than 10,000, at least according to its data. We didn't physically count them, but we'll trust them on that. So
Right.
How is your book different from the other 10,010?
Okay, well, it's kind of from the point of view of, well, it's funny, and living in this town, you bump into people who are famous and glamorous, and to me that was a funny thing, because I didn't really want to be a famous movie star like some of my friends did. So I kind of am approaching it kind of from a humorous point of view, and which I think might be different than a lot of those books who kind of really think that there is glamour here, but I think it's silly.
Now, if somebody picks up a book in the library or bookstore, whatever, about Hollywood, and they're living in Youngstown, Ohio, and they've never been west of Indianapolis, they finally come out to Hollywood, there's often a bit of a letdown, isn't there?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's always, I think that's life, right? Like you always expect something big and exciting to happen. And in my point of view, sometimes that does, but it's not what you expect. But often you don't get what the big exciting thing that you're looking for. And I think the fact that we expect life to be somehow bigger than it is, I think is, I don't know, it's something we can laugh at.
Well, how did you get your start here? Where did you come from? Born in Los Angeles, a native of the city?
No, I was born in Buffalo, New York. Let's see, my family moved to Riverside. I don't know whether anyone has heard of Riverside, California, but it's kind of a crappy little town over 60 miles that way.
I think the Chamber of Commerce is calling you right now.
It's like mainly orange groves. I don't know, when I was growing up, that's what it was. It might have developed into something different by now, but that was in the 50s and 60s. It was just I don't know if I can swear on your show, but
you can say whatever you'd like to say.
But always reminded me of that.
we may beep that.
But it was, it was a little town, and so I grew up with that and moved to LA when I was like, sixth grade. How old are you then? 10 maybe. So I came here then, and my parents weren't in showbiz. My father was a scientist or a physicist. So I just but we ended up in neighborhoods where, sometimes big name people lived. So yes, we had a house in Pacific Palisades, and at the time, Ronald Reagan lived somewhere between me and the school I went to.
I guess that would be pointing you towards a political career, if not one in entertainment.
Anyway, yeah. So I was surrounded by this stuff, and to me, just because I'm a freak, as the book says, I think it's more normal to be impressed by such things, and for some reason, I just thought it was silly.
You call yourself a freak, but what do you really mean by that description? You look kind of normal to us.
Yes, I am. I am so normal. I'm comparing myself to the people who want to be a movie star or think of the glamour. So growing up in this town and just not caring a bit about that and think it's silly, that's what I mean by being a freak. So, and I'm freakish in other ways. I mean, just the art I make is kind of challenging and, makes people hopefully think, what is he up to? Why is he doing that? So stuff like that. But so yeah, I thought it was funny. I don't know that, it just came to me and I didn't include it in the book. But maybe I have to add it. I don't know if you knew the movie Freaks. It was a 1935 movie made, I can't remember, but I just remember when I was in high school, because ended up going to some artsy high school, and like my friends all wanted to be underground filmmakers, and so my friend said, let's go see this movie, it's amazing. So we went to see it, and there's a point in the movie where the circus freaks accept an outsider as one of them. I don't know if you remember the scene, but they're sitting at a table, and they're all these strange looking humans, and they start singing, we accept you, one of us, one of us. And the person that they are accepting is horrified that they should think she was one of them because she doesn't want to be a freak. Anyway, we loved that. We just thought, because we felt like somehow it reflected on us. We were like that.
You were almost like an early stage geek in a way from your description.
Yeah, well, at least my best friends at the high school were certainly stage geeks.
Now, you have also put together an annual film festival.
Yes.
We are recording this on December 16th before the one airs for this year. But would you tell us about what you hope to see coming up in a few days, as if it were in the past tense? Does that make any sense?
Yes. On this Saturday, I'm presenting the 22nd, maybe, Nihilist Film Festival, and it's really fun. And actually, in last year and then this year, it's going to be online instead of in a cool little art space in Los Angeles, just because of COVID. So all of your people can go watch it if this comes out before the 18th, or even the week after. Anyway, so it's going to be on Vimeo, and it's, I just because of the internet and technology and stuff, it's kind of changed over the years. It used to be people would make films on Super 8 and they would get them to me, or they'd be on 3/4 inch video. But now I can do this all on the web. There's some websites where filmmakers can submit their films to film festivals, and so I got 160 submissions from all over the world, and I watched them all and picked the freakiest of the, and so I have 2 hours of films from all over the world, and they're funny and weird, and they're short films, and it's just a real fun show.
How has Hollywood changed over the years, from the time you were a teenager there to where you are now? You still live right there.
Yeah, I make fun of a lot of things about Los Angeles, but I really love living here. It'd be really hard for me to live someplace else. I think I lived in New Orleans for like 9 months, and I lived in Northern California for a couple of years for college. But I love this town, and and some of it's about, and that's in the book too, about, besides the glamorous Hollywood and Hollywood Boulevard with stars on it, like that one I took a picture of on my book cover. There's kind of real artists and underground comedians, and there's a thing called alt comedy, which is alternative comedy, and there's a lot of really creative people and so I can get up at hop in my car and go see a midnight comedy show, at least before COVID. And there'd be all these wonderful people who I loved performing. Most nights of the week, I could go catch a midnight comedy show or a storytelling show or a art show, a performance art show. And that made me, so those are people more like me, and they are doing things, I don't know. I guess just as an example, there was a thing, because I grew up around people who, some of them wanted to be like famous comedians. And there was a formula, there is still a formula. If you perform in a comedy club, a normal comedy club, there's so many laughs per minute, and and people, and there's no like bigger context. You're not really, and so it's kind of like the comedy you see on TV, where a comedian gets up and tells joke, 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 joke. Thank you very much. Tip your waitress, and then they're off, and that's the joke. And we call those. It's like dick jokes, and so it's like dick joke, dick joke, dick joke. Thank you very much. And that's the formula for a successful comedian. So I see comedians at my weird shows in the middle of the night who are like doing completely weird stuff, doing these weird characters, like Bobcat Goldthwait did, if anyone remembers. Anyway, so they're really doing much more creative stuff, and it just makes me, and they're breaking out of that formula of joke, joke, joke. And so I talk about those guys in my book too, about that there is another LA that where there are really creative people doing wonderful stuff. It's funny, some of them, every now and then, I don't think they're mainly doing it to become stars, but several of them, I don't know, Rachel Bloom, who did the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I remember her from 10, 15 years ago performing in some tiny little club called Upright Citizens Brigade at midnight. And she'd get out her little guitar and sing these crazy, funny songs. And I don't know. So somehow, I guess living here, somebody said, oh, we should stick her in this TV show or make a TV show about that. So some of them did end up on TV, and I get to watch them. But most of them are still doing their crazy comedy and the midnight shows all around town. And so there's some of that.
What do you suppose is the secret to breaking through? If you have so many fish in the pond, how do you become the star fish?
Well, most of it's dumb luck. A lot of it is. There's a lot of very talented people out there, and I don't think the most talented of them are the ones that we end up seeing on the walk on the gold carpet or whatever it is. And so I don't know. A lot of it is dumb luck, and a lot of the people who end up being famous aren't the people I'd pick. But there are a handful. I do see some of the people I love kind of, maybe a lot of them are doing voices for cartoons, or they're writing for this show or that show, or they're not famous, but I see their names and I say, oh, I remember his show or her show. so the people are taking advantage of their creativity, so that's good. But yeah, so there are not too many Rachel Blooms out there. I don't know if I remember her singing a song called Me Ray Bradbury, which was hilarious, where she's just like the character of a nerdy high school girl, which is not too much different than her TV personality. And she's just like, I read this book and now I love that guy and I want him to be my boyfriend. And of course, anyway, so that makes me, I remember fondly those kinds of songs from her.
You obviously love where you live and where you have grown up and where you have prospered. What do you see as an insider who's also an outsider, I guess, for the future of the Hollywood entertainment industry in light of all the streaming services that have popped up?
I think that might be why some of these more alternative comedians or perform artists are, finding some kind of platform to it's good that somehow the monopoly of Hollywood is being broken up a bit. So I see positive things about that. There's so many, between Netflix and all these other places, they're hiring people to make shows for them, and they might last a little bit or they might last a long time. But yeah, there's a lot more a need for programming. I don't know. I'm not really an expert in that stuff, but I don't know. I was one of my old friends. Well, kind of was trying to do that before there was all these streaming services. He said, "Oh, I'll make my own special," and he took money out of his pocket and made some kind of fun hour special, and there was no place to show it at the time, so that didn't work so good. But it was a fun special.
Well, perhaps one of these days we'll see the Shapiro streaming channel.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but what I do, the podcasts do sound fun. I used to have this like public access cable TV show.
Oh dear. Well, we hope they're better than that.
Right. So that's what I'm used to. So I did enjoy sitting around talking with people who had different views than me or similar views or whatever. So I do remember what that was like. So podcasts sound like they fit more of that structure.
What would you like to talk about that we haven't had a chance to bring up?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you can tell I love this town. So when I talk about making fun of it, that it's one part of it I make fun of, not my part.
One last thing, if you don't mind, you must have a website. Would you tell our listeners and viewers what that is?
Yeah. Anyway, it's called Nihilist's Corner, and it's the website's nihilists.net, and it's got over the years, it's got the calendar I make and the book and the film festival and also people writing in comments. A lot of people saying, oh, you're crazy nihilist, or what's wrong with you, and then sometimes I answer and sometimes I don't. And it's got a list of all the guests I had on my TV show, and I don't know anything else, just a list of the art stuff I did. So yeah, I guess the I don't know if anyone remembers, but the first big art piece I did was the 1984 Nihilist Olympics. So I talk about that in there a little bit, but in 1984, the regular Olympics were coming to LA. And so me and my friends were making fun of that and coming up with funny alternative Olympic events. And the Olympics are coming back to LA, I hear. So I don't know what's going to happen there. But we had really fun Olympic events like the U-turn competition, and there'd be judges standing on a corner and people would be making U-turns and we'd hold up their scores. And if you go to my YouTube channel, there's a video of a lot of those crazy events. anyway, so yeah, so that was like the first time I kind of thought, gee, I can use the media as a little platform to say, okay, this is something everyone's like going crazy about the Olympics. Here's my attempt to make fun of that. And so we really had a lot of fun. A lot of people in LA participated in the Nihilist Olympics and the decathlon of housework and the I don't know, there were the projectile vomiting a marathon, and anyway, a bunch of funny things that we did. So that was like my first idea of, oh, I can do a different kind of art. It's not like a painting, but it's like presenting weird imagery and weird ideas to people through the media. And I guess I was, growing up here especially, but everywhere, the media is like, controls our minds. And somehow because humans are like tribal people, we want to fit in, and this, the media tells us this is right and this is wrong and this is what you should believe in. And so the idea of my Nihilist Olympics sitting in the LA Times right next to a normal article just made me feel like, okay, now I've got something going. And so I did that for a few things. I had my political campaigns that I got to do the same thing, where I'd make fun of the running for president or whatever. So it was just, that might have been influenced by growing up here also, just the idea of media being so central. And, television was at the time was centered in LA, and that was like LA and New York, but I was anyway, so that was kind of, I guess, part of the book too, but also part of, my being influenced by all that stuff.
You've been watching the Bizgnus podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@biznews.com. Thanks for watching.